Hello, beautiful people. Good morning and happy Friday. I'm so happy to be here and doing another video for you guys. Today we're going to do another video piggybacking off of my top 5 favorite common houseplants. We're going to talk about the Scindapsus collection / care routine. I did get an Instagram request to go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into the care, so that way I can hopefully help you guys if you're struggling with your Scindapsus or you just need that little bit of oomph to get that plant going. So before we get into the plant care and my collection, you know I have to read the planty comment of the last video. So this is from Taupe Bread Productions, and she put, "Your plants are so healthy. This inspires me to share my top 5 favorite plants. Excellent content. Keep bringing value to others." So this plant comment was just so inspiring to me. I love helping others and, inspiring others to do the same. YouTube can be scary. Talking to other people can be scary, but it just makes me feel good that I inspire others to do the same. So that's why I picked this comment for today. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and share. First, I'm going to show you my collection of Scindapsus, just so you can see the variety. And I don't have all of them. There's a lot more that I don't have, but I'm going to show you the ones that I have. I know in that video I said that I have 4, I think I said, and that is definitely not true. So this is my first Scindapsus. This is the Scindapsus dark form, and this isn't exactly, I wouldn't say a beginner-ish plant. This plant is more expensive of all of the Scindapsus. It's really hard to get your hands on, but it is a beautiful plant. First got this plant, I was kind of confused about the variety that I had because mine is more green than normal. But you can see that the new growth is coming in more black, and this is typical of the dark form. It has like that. It's so green that it comes off black. But this plant does not grow as fast as the other Scindapsus, and that's another reason why I wouldn't really recommend it to a beginner, because it doesn't really give you that satisfaction that you get with other Scindapsus. But I just wanted to show you that this is the dark form. Parallel to that one is the Moonlight Scindapsus, and this one is gorgeous. This one used to be more of a commodity. The price has gone down since it first came onto the market, and you can just see it just has that silvery sheen. So it is like the polar opposite of the dark form, but this one grows noticeably faster. I do see some people that struggle with it, but this one is a faster growing variety of the Scindapsus, and it still has like that waxy, rubbery texture to it, and it's just a beautiful plant. All of my Scindapsus grow under Growlights, and I think that's where they just seem to like it the most. But that's the Moonlight version. Now moving out is the Scindapsus Silver Splash, and I got this one from Gabriella's Plants. I don't see a lot of other people selling this plant, so I'm not really sure where else you could get it. But if you can see, this plant is completely different, and I'll show you the other Scindapsus, but it doesn't have that silver lining that's on the edge of the plant, as well as it doesn't have like the silver tips like a silvery Ann. It's just in a class of its own, but most of the silver will become down the middle, as well as it has this vein or the stripe of darkness right there. But this plant gave me a hard time when I first got it. I was so frustrated with this plant. It was just, half of it was dying, the other half wasn't dying. I didn't know what was happening until one day I just finally uprooted the plant to see what was going on. And it turned out that only half the plant was rooted. I don't know how you buy a plant and half of it is rooted, but that is what happened. So what I had to do was take the portion that wasn't rooted and stick it in water and reroot it. And then I potted it back in here, and ever since it's been doing well. As you can see, Right here is where it's getting a majority of the light. You can see a new leaf coming in here and there, but it's a little leggy right here, and it's because it's not receiving as much light, and that's due to the fact that it's beginning to trail. But this is one of my favorite forms, the Silver Splash. It is absolutely gorgeous. Another favorite of mine that is more common would be the Silvery Ann. I got half of this from Land of Alice on Etsy and half from my haul at the Old Country Gardens, but this plant is beautiful. This plant would be the go-between the Scindapsus argyrius and the exotica. You can get leaves here which remind you more of the argyrius, and then here are leaves that remind you of the exotica, the more silver. But this plant just has so much silver. You get so much variation. Some leaves will be all silver, some of them will have just the silver tips, and some won't have very much silver or just the outer lining. But this is another gorgeous Scindapsus. I'm gonna try to lift this one up, but I'm gonna have to put it back down. This is my exotica, and as you can see, it's really big. I hope you can see the top where the leaves are coming in more silver. I think that's a result of it getting more light, because that happened when I put it under my grow light. It started putting out more silver leaves. But that was another plant that I received that had half rooted, half not rooted, and I was just so disappointed. I got that plant from Home Depot, and half of the plant was just cuttings. I could not believe it. But again, I had to do the same thing. Root them in water, pot them back. Some of the leaves that weren't rooted are still kind of struggling a little bit, but overall the plant is doing really well. And my last Scindapsus is the argyrius. I think this one is just gorgeous. I just love the green and the simple flecks of silver. This is absolutely gorgeous. This might be my top favorite Scindapsus, actually. I don't know if I said that already, but this one's actually my top one, just because it's so fluffy and it's just lush looking. And I just love, I love lush plants, but that one is more common to find in stores, especially you can probably find it at Lowe's or Home Depot, and they tend not to be too expensive. I think around like $3 or so. But those are the Scindapsus I have. I think that was 6. And there's a lot more. You can get a Scindapsus lucens, a Scindapsus silver lady. Those you might have to import from other countries like Thailand or Indonesia. They tend to be a little pricey. Like sometimes the Scindapsus silver lady goes for $90, and that's for 2 leaves. Yeah. But anyway, into the care. I got my notes, so let's get into it. The Scindapsus is part of the Araceae family, which is the are more of a beginner-friendly plant. I won't say they're the easiest plant, because not everyone can just grow these plants, although they are easier than a lot of other plants that you will see. They are beginner-friendly. I would start out my collection with like a Scindapsus or a philodendron, like the trailing philodendrons, and I would just move from there. They have the ability to grow in darker areas. Now, just because they have the ability to grow in darker areas doesn't mean I would grow them in darker areas. So if you see back there in my kitchen, it's a lot darker than it is up here. My kitchen doesn't really get that much light, and for me to grow a plant over there, the plant would probably struggle. So that's not an area where I would grow this in. But just because a plant says it can grow in a lower light doesn't mean that that's where you should put it. If you do put it there, just don't expect it to thrive or be fluffy and lush. Just have the expectation that, that plant's probably not going to do as well. With these plants, you can have them climb up a pole, or you can have them trail. I have my Moonlight, it's climbing up. Usually when your plants climb up and they have something to grab onto, the roots, the aerial roots, the plants do have the ability for the leaves, the more mature foliage, to get bigger. When you have the plant trail down, the plants, sometimes the leaves do come in smaller, and it is because, you know, that plant is just not getting as much light. So as you can see here, these leaves are a lot smaller. The space between the nodes are a lot longer. So this plant, as far as this portion, isn't receiving as much light, and this is a very good indication of it not getting enough light. So if you see your plant leaves coming in this small, you might want to bump up your light, get a grow light, or move it to another area. Speaking of light, these plants like medium to indirect light. And I know when people say indirect light, it can be a little confusing. So you want to think of it as direct light is the light that's coming in through your window, and if it goes across your plant leaves, or if you see the light touching your plant leaves, that's more of a direct light. Indirect light would be you just walking around the house with no lights on, you're able to navigate, or you reading a book and you're able to read the book without glasses or any additional lights. Now I'm not talking about you reading a book, you know, your head in the book, just reasonable, you're able to see the wording, and you know, you just have that ambient light. So back there would not be indirect medium light, that would be a low light area. Up here where you can see like the light, it's bright, this would be more of a medium indirect light, and that's where these plants thrive. Like I said, if you don't give them enough light, you will have the smaller leaves, you will have more leggy trails. When you give your plants enough light, you will have bigger leaves like this one here, where the plant's letting you know, hey, I'm getting enough light and this is good. When you water these plants, you want to make sure you water the plant thoroughly. This is to get all of any buildup from your soil, from your water, to make sure that it runs through. You also want to make sure that it's going through the soil, because where you water your plant is where the roots grow. And I can go more into this when I talk about my watering video. But you want to make sure you're watering your plants thoroughly, that the water is coming out of the drainage hole. You want to make sure the water drains through the hole in the bottom. You also want to make sure that if you have a tray, that you dump the extra water. A lot of people let that water sit there because they're, I won't say lazy, but they're tired, you know, they have a lot of plants, they don't want to, you know, dump the extra water. But if there's water in the tray, you make sure you dump that water, because some plants will be okay, but most plants do not like sitting in that extra water. It will wick back up and the plant will be overwatered. So you want to make sure the plant just takes in just enough water for it to be able to sustain itself, but not too much to where it's gonna be overwatered and you're gonna get a bunch of yellow leaves. I do water my Scindapsus once a week. I notice that that's their sweet spot. And if you're a beginner, you can wait till the leaves start to curl if you need another indication. I always use my moisture meter to let me know if I need to water my plant. Now on the moisture meter, I usually wait till it gets to a 0 or 1 and I will water my plant. I do not water it before 0, 1, and I try not to let it go too far past a 0. Past a 0 is when the leaves really start to curl. And sometimes when you let your plant dry out too much, it will be hard for the plant to bounce back. You will dry out your roots if you let it dry out too much. So you want to make sure that you're letting it dry out, but letting it dry out within reason. So spring and summer, you can water your plants more, but use your water meter. Fall and winter, you want to water your plants less because there's less light. There's cooler temperatures, the plant won't dry out, the soil won't dry out as fast, so you want to water less in the winter. Fertilizer, most people suggest for you to fertilize in the growing season, spring and summer. I fertilize my plants all year round, and there's a lot of debate around that, but that's what I find that my plants do the best. As long as my plants are still growing in the fall and winter, I will still fertilize my plants. And it's just because if the plant's still growing, why not just give it some nutrients? It only makes sense to me. If that doesn't fit your plant routine or care, then you don't have to do that. But I do fertilize my plants all year round as long as they still are growing. With a fertilizer, you can fertilize your plants every 2 weeks if you're doing it full strength. However, what I do, or you can do once a week, however often you want to. What I do is I fertilize every time I water, and I'll do a weaker diluted solution of fertilizer every time I water, because I cannot remember that. I don't want to remember every 2 weeks. I don't want to remember every week. So I just do it every time I water, and I do a weaker solution. So that way every time I water, they're getting a little bit of nutrients. As far as temperature and humidity, normal temperature should be fine with these plants. I would say like 55, 60 degrees is like, the lowest you kind of want to go for these plants. Normal humidity, household humidity, 40 to 50%, they will do fine. If you can do a little bit higher temperature or higher humidity, they will go faster, just because it mimics the environment that comes from outside. But if you can't, I wouldn't stress out with these plants. They're pretty tolerant. As far as propagation, these plants are really easy to propagate. All you do is you take your strand. These are your nodes where the roots come out. So you want to cut in between the node, and that is also known as the internode. So you have one here, you cut in the middle, you stick this in water, and you make sure this root right here is able to be in the water, so that way this root can grow out. When this root grows out and you have about 2 to 3 inches, you're ready to either pot it back in the plant to make it fuller, or you can start a new plant. The thing you can do, which is my favorite method, is take a plant that's starting to trail, and you see this little trailer. I have the roots facing down, so that way when I go in, I can just tuck that into the pot, making sure that the roots touch the soil, so that way when I water the plant or when the soil is moist, those roots go looking for the moisture, and they grow into the pot, and it will root itself into the pot. So that's what I do to get a bigger, fuller plant. I've done this over and over with all of my Scindapsus, and that's how I propagate. That's how I make a fuller pot. So also, a note, just putting it out there. When your plants start to have roots coming out at the bottom of your pot, when you can see the roots, it's time to up pot your plant. It's time to get a pot that's 2 inches bigger than the current size. If you don't want the plant to get bigger, you can keep it in that pot, or you can cut the roots back. This is not what I suggest, but I have seen a lot of people, and it does make me gas, but that's how they want to grow their plants. But like I said, when you see the roots coming out, it's time to bump your plants up. That is the plant telling you that it is growing it's outgrowing its current size. It could be root bound. The roots are probably winding around the bottom or the sides. It's time to put in a bigger size. If you don't up pot your plants, they won't get bigger. They won't get more lush. So you will stunt the growth that way by keeping it in smaller pots. So that is everything I have on my Scindapsus, everything that I do to keep them thriving and healthy. If you guys enjoyed this video, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Please subscribe to my channel for more content information. I really want to put as much value into these videos as possible. But have a great weekend and stay safe. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Look at Sage. He's saying bye.